What's up, y'all? Jermaine, Bibb, pilot, based out of Louisville, Kentucky, Bowman Field, Kilo Lima Oscar uniform. And I am here to pretty much present a commercial Checkride debrief. I just got my commercial rating a month ago, and I wanted to make a gouge or a debrief on what I went through personally with my DPE. So I try to help people out. And just there's so many resources out there on social media and YouTube and all that stuff, and I want to definitely be one of those people to help the next person out who's working on a commercial rating. So this is pretty much a debrief of how my commercial check ride went, and hopefully you can find this helpful. Please feel free to like the video, comment if you have any questions at the end. And of course subscribe to my channel. I've been making flight videos and everything. I've been doing it since I started flying, like literally since my first flight, and just kind of taking people along with me throughout my journey of becoming a professional pilot in the big league, so to speak, flying jets and all that. So hopefully you enjoy the video, and if, like I said, if you have any questions, just holler at me at the end. So we're gonna get into it. All right. So of course the first thing that we kind of worked on, we talked about. Upon my arrival, he actually met me at the aircraft and wanted to look at my registration for the aircraft that I was flying today. When he went ahead to look at the registration and the certificate, the aircraft certificate and everything, of course I had the POH with me. So pretty much aero, all that stuff, he just made sure I had it with me and I was prepared for that. He looked at the registration number and made sure it matched the side of the door to the aircraft I was flying, and that it was visible, of course. All that stuff was visible. And that's what we did initially when I first arrived. We then went into his office, and of course he's he wants to see my government issued ID, my pilot certificate, and my medical, just to make sure everything's up to date. Well, I don't think the medical was that much of a factor outside of me exercising as a private pilot, but it wasn't a factor for me to exercise a commercial rating because technically I'm not a commercial pilot, so he wasn't worried about that. But he looked at the medical, make sure I was good to fly, and it was up to date, of course. Then we dived into looking at my endorsements, my hours, my requirements for me to actually take this test, and that checked out good. So then we just ended up diving into the oral, and after of course that during that time he's talking with you, he or she may talk with you just to make you comfortable. Check rides can be nerve-wracking, so just my DP did a good job of just talking to me, making me feel comfortable. I'm already a good calm. I consider myself a calm person anyway, so and I like to talk already. So just him talking to me and creating small conversation, us learning more about each other during that time of the initial check ride, it definitely made me feel better and everything. So just make sure y'all as comfortable as can be, and just you'll be ready. You prepare yourself for this, and they want you, and he or she will tell you that they want you to succeed. So they're not there just to fail you, but they really want you to try to make something out of it. Okay. All right. I do want to say that every DP is different. Just because what I'm discussing on my check ride, what happened with my check ride, my DPE, does not mean it's going to happen with your check ride. Everybody, like I said, every DP is different. So, but this is just a tool to show you that what my DP put me through. And there's a couple check rides out there that I've seen, or debriefs that I've seen commercial check rides that they said this happened to them but didn't happen to me. You know what I mean? So just be prepared for anything, and that's the main thing. Just be prepared, stay on point. Very important. We can dive right into this oral. Of course we talked about, and this is not in a particular order. I'm just kind of bouncing around because of course I took it a month ago. I didn't make a debrief immediately after my check ride. I just what I can remember. Then I'm basing off of some stuff that what I got from another person before I took my check ride. I have a gouge right here too that was just to kind of go through, and most of the stuff that was on this gouge was actually on my check ride too. So just kind of passing it along, and trying to pay it forward. So we talked about wet versus dry lease, going and stepping into the oral. Of course, very important to know what the difference between a wet versus dry lease is. Talk to your instructor about that. Your instructor will need to give you some type of ground endorsement to approve you, so to speak, to take this check ride. in my logbook, my instructor needed to put a document or sign something in that says that we covered the proper ground basis, and he felt that I was able to prepared enough to take a check ride. So just make sure your instructor did that to discuss all the ground stuff, ground school and all that. Ground school is so important. A lot of people or instructors will just tell you you can do that, you can kind of do it on your own, but that is the case, but some people learn differently. So if you need to push your instructor to tell him or her that, I need you to sit down with me to do this, and that hopefully they're willing to do it. And if they're not willing to do that, you probably need to find a new instructor straight up. So that's just that. So wet versus dry lease, of course. We talked about common carriage, of course, and the 4 elements of that. So what makes a common carriage? What makes you be a common act as a common carriage pilot or whatever. So just read the reg on common carriage. We talked about common carriage versus private carriage. There's a circular advisory out there specifically about that too. So I read that, and I advise anybody else to read that, or just do a lot of information. Ask your instructor, look up some videos or whatever. Google, internet's at the tip of our fingers nowadays. So if you're curious about it, that's the beauty of today's world and the internet. You can just find it in a quick second. So definitely exercise that if you don't know something. We also talked about holding out. What it takes to be holding out. I just gave him an example, and he accepted that. Holding out, because it's important to know that, because especially the day and age of social media, you might accidentally hold yourself out there when you didn't mean to, but technically you're holding yourself out. So definitely be familiar with what holding out is. That way you can just don't do it, because you don't want to risk your license or your rating or anything just because you're doing something on accident and it's illegal. So be aware of that. He gave me an example of so the 7 days before, he sent me a gouge of what for my cross country planning and everything, and in that gouge he asked me what did my company I'm working for, this is my scenario for my cross country, the company that I'm working for is looking to take their mechanic. They want me to fly one of the mechanics to another city or so, somewhat or whatever, and they're going to pay me, but they want me to get the aircraft. So the question was, is that legal for me to do that? And the answer is no, because if I'm providing the aircraft, I cannot legally. The company would have to either have their own aircraft or provide the aircraft, and they can't go through. They have to set that up themselves. They can't go through me, and I cannot do that. Otherwise, I'm not exercising correctly my commercial privileges. So just be aware of scenarios that your DP might throw at you, and have a real good idea of what you can and cannot do. It gets very technical. So, and it's a lot of information out there that you can use to find out, okay, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do that? Just be ready, and be ready for anything, honestly. We did talk about what we can do as a commercial rated pilot, the different stuff you can do, act as a CFI, city tours and such. And that was a big discussion, because he wants to know that when you get this rating, what are you allowed to do as far as paying for hire. So just go back through that and see what you're legally able to do, part 119 in the FAR aim. So just have a good understanding of that, because this is the first step this is only the beginning. So you definitely want to stay legal, and we worked hard and spent a lot of time and money to get where we are, so we don't want to do nothing illegal to where we will risk our rating or our license. Okay, we definitely talked about everything missed on my written. I highly recommend Shepherd Air for sure. Shepherd Air is it's a great tool to use, and they have a great method of getting you to understand just everything on the commercial written. The strategy they have and the steps they go through. If you go through each of those steps like they say, like they tell you to, you should have no problem getting 100% on your commercial rating, or any rating that Shepherd Air offers. So definitely try. Of course, you should try hard to get 100 on your written, but of course, some people don't do that. I mean, I didn't get 100 on my written, but it definitely plays a big factor because he or she will ask you questions that you missed. So if you barely got a 70, you probably got a nice amount of questions that he or she, your DP, is going to talk to you about that covers, the stuff that you missed on your check ride. So, and that's just some more time that you got to spend talking to your DP during the oral. So if you get 100, cool, that's always the goal. I definitely recommend not going straight to taking practice tests. Definitely study the material. And like I said, I recommend shepherd there. Just study the material. If you go through those strategies that they tell you to go through, you should be on point, okay? We did talk about my flight plan. I know I was talking, he sent a gouge on what the scenario is for our flight plan. So we talked about our flight plan, how I prepared for it, weight and balance, get familiar with NW crafts. And I printed off, I used ForeFlight and I used aviationweather.gov. Of course, ForeFlight, I don't think ForeFlight is a FAA approved source, but aviationweather.gov is. So I printed off a lot of charts from aviationweather.gov to reference for my flight, and just to show him that, okay, around this time we're going to be doing this. If we're departing at this time, it should be this weather, winds coming from this way. So just use your resources and definitely print them out so you can present them to him or her for on your check ride. We talked about if you're an instrument rated pilot, which are commercial versus a not instrument rated pilot, which are commercial. So what limitations do you have without having your instrument rating in it, but being a commercial pilot? So just make sure you know that instrument with commercial and non-instrument with commercial. How far can you go during the day? What can you do at night for hire? So just get familiar with that. We talked about that a little bit. Of course, we talked about the fuel, the power plant, fuel capacity, oil capacity, constant speed prop. That was important too. We talked about that. Not too much details, but just details on how it works and what's associated with it. Definitely know what fly weights are and all that. So just have a good understanding of it. There's a lot of good sources out there on the internet. Bold Method has a good article on explaining constant speed propellers, constant speed props. So YouTube has a good way too. I'm a visual learner, so I had to look up a lot of stuff on the internet to see, okay, this is how it works. And if you're not a mechanic, you really don't see the inside of all that unless you're just on YouTube. Unless you got mechanic friends where you just hang out with them. But I definitely recommend hopping on the YouTube or Google. Like I said, Bold Method has a good article out there on constant speed prop. Just visually seeing how it works and how it's put together. And when it does this, the manifold, RPMs, just understand that completely, okay? Aviation decision making was important. What are you doing before you go out here and take these flights, or before you go out this flight? How do you self-assess yourself? So that's very important. I'm safe and PAVE. Those two, that's pretty much, I told him those two, and he was like, okay, good. You know what you need to do before that. We discussed hazardous attitudes, which kind of goes along with all that as well. That's very important to understand hazardous attitudes, okay? And we discussed, the stuff on that. He asked me about medicals. We went in a little bit of a detail about, your medicals. If you got a first class, if you got a second class, a third class, above 40, under 40, all that. So, so just make sure you're aware of the medical and the time frame that you have with your medicals upon your age. I already said about the cross-country planning, weather, fuel burn, etc. Listing alternates. Alternates is always good, especially if you're flying for hire. You're kind of the responsible person for the souls on board. So you just need to be ready for anything. You know what I mean? So, and that's, of course, if you're a good pilot, you want to be ready for anything. Anything can happen. So just if something happens, as far as bad weather at the airport you're going to, okay, this is my second option, or even going as far as the third or fourth option. So hopefully you won't have to come to a third or fourth option, but just always be ready. So talk about that. We discussed pressurization systems. Pressurization systems important, along with oxygen requirements and stuff for you or the crew or the passengers and everything. So make sure you are aware of oxygen requirements and pressurization. We did talk about the different oxygen masks and the what altitudes those masks will be at. So just understand the different masks, and I didn't know that honestly until I started looking into my commercial. Until I started studying for my commercial, that there was different types of pressurizations and oxygen for the mask. So the fighter jet pilots don't have the same type of mask as a person flying at 12,000 feet. You know what I mean, or 15,000 feet. So it can be very different, based off the flight levels. We talked about hypoxia. How can one obtain hypoxia, and how can one get rid of it if it was encountered mid-flight? If you know about hypoxia, it's a lack of oxygen to the brain. So just know that you need oxygen for hypoxia to go away, because you're not getting as much oxygen to your brain. So just understand that, do more research on that, and understand how hypoxia works. Passenger and flight review. So of course, what do you need to do to make sure you can carry passengers? What do you need to do to make sure you can fly? Of course, a flight review, a rebellion review, and of course the landings, the 3 landings and everything, 3 landings at night, full stop, taxi back. Just know what you need to do as far as staying current and everything. Currency is very important. We did discuss the primary and secondary flight controls. So just understand what those are. It was a brief discussion, but just make sure I think people tend to forget about the small things from their private. All the commercial is a glorified private pilot check ride. So just on a higher scale, but you want to be on point with knowing what this is, what this is, because you're becoming responsible, and you want to exercise your right to fly for hire. So it's just important. You can't take this for granted, and just being able to do this and fly at these altitudes for granted. You want to be on point at all times. So we did talk about primary and secondary controls and everything. We also talked about light gun signals, and green is good, or keep going, red is hazard, proceed with caution, whatever. But I told them that I carry when I fly, I always have a knee board with me, and at the bottom of my knee board has light gun signals, the translation of light gun signals and what they are. So I told them that, I carry my knee board, and in the event of that, I'll, if I don't know, I'll just look down right here real quick and kind of just go from there. So he accepted that and everything. If you remember your light gun signals top of your head, kudos to you. I think I do find it hard to keep stuff in back up here if you don't do it repetitively. So how often do you really use light gun signals? You know what I mean? So it's definitely always good to have a reference around you somewhere near, in your flight bag, on your knee board, or on your iPad. Just something close that way, just in case you do forget something. If you do lose those comms or something, and you're able to look at the tower or anybody on the ground, and just be okay, cool, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what they want me to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. So light gun signals is important. All that in a nutshell. That's a lot of what I went through. Honestly, that was pretty much it. Like I said, he hit me up like a week before and gave me my gauge on what to expect from my cross country. He made sure my acro was done. So make sure your instructor goes through your acro with you a week before. And yeah, that's pretty much it, y'all. As far as the oral goes, okay. And it went my oral went good. I really liked it. He was very comfortable. Like I said, I had a couple stumbles, but just stay calm. This is not a race at all. It's a marathon. So just take your time, and I'm sure he or she will let you. Like, if you need to step outside, take a deep breath, and regroup, let's definitely do that. You know what I'm saying? But make sure you try to prepare yourself as much as possible, and don't stretch yourself out too much during this big day. Because we all want to succeed, and the DP wants you to succeed too. So just try to stay calm as much as you can. So to move on to the flight portion of my check ride, one thing very, 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 very important is clearing turns. Clearing turns are so important. So before every maneuver, before everything, my DP actually made me. He gave me the option of choosing between certain things, between certain maneuvers. Like instead of steep, like he asked me if I want to do steep turns or a steep spiral. I mean, I chose steep turns. If you've been working on steep turns, or if you've been working on steep spirals, some people might be better other than that, but then better than at one than the other. But I definitely chose steep turns. So, but the main thing is make sure you do your clearing turns first before every maneuver. I think he said between Chandelles and Lazy Eights, I showed Chandelles. Then we did all the ground reference maneuvers and all that, all the stalls. But I'm gonna keep saying it, before every maneuver, including stalls, whatever, clearing turns. You have and not only clearing turns, but you have to verbally say the area is clear. You know what I mean? So just make sure you pin it in your head. I had a good friend of mine, Jonna. She, I shout out to Jonna. She said CHAPS, and I didn't know about CHAPS. My instructor didn't teach me CHAPS, so she's like, man, CHAPS, clearing turns, heading, altitude, position, and I think it was spot to land, I believe. But clearing turns, that's, clearing turns is important. It's so important, y'all. Don't forget about the clearing turns, for real, because it's important, because that's something that you can get failed on. You can get disapproved on. Like, if you don't do a clearing turn, if you get distracted from him or her telling you, okay, a turn left heading 340, and we can get into our chandelles. You're like, okay, cool, 340. While you're in that turn, so to going towards 340 or whatever heading they assign you to, you can be like, okay, looking out the window. You may be looking out the window, so just make, okay, cool, area's clear while we're doing that as well. And they may accept that, it may not, but I'm sure he or she will let you know, like, okay, I accept that. So, clearing turns. Put that in your head, clearing turns, okay? Like I said, I did steep turns, all the stalls, of course, and chandelles. Then we did, of course, the 8-zone power lines, emergency descent. Emergency descent if with fire in the cockpit or with positional hazard in the cockpit, and engine fire. So we did both of those. Of course, we did when we got back to the airport, headed back in. We did power off 180. Like I said, I said all the stalls already. Power on, power off, accelerated. Yeah, those was all good. Then going back to the airport, we did power off 180, soft field, short field, take off and land. We did track a VOR while I was in the air, so just make sure you know how to track a VOR, the radio and the bearing. Understanding the difference between those two. And I mean, that is pretty much all the stuff that I went through. You know what I mean? It should be very similar to what you go through. Definitely understand what your V speeds are in your aircraft that you're flying. VX, VY, the best glide and all that, the stall speed, flaps extended and all that. So that's very important. We did slow flight. I don't think I mentioned that before, I'm sorry. But we did slow flight. Before all those things, literally clearing turns. Don't forget clearing turns. And if you can't tell by now, I had something happen with me with my clearing turns. So I'm trying to pass that along to y'all. That way it doesn't happen to my people. You feel me? We gotta stick together. So CHAPS, clearing turns, heading, altitude, position. I forgot the S, spot. I'm gonna say spot to land, because if an emergency happens, figure out where you're gonna go to. Okay, you always have a spot to land in your mind if you're doing maneuvers, just in case something goes south. But yeah, y'all. I mean, I know I talk fast and all that, and I can be unclear at times, but hopefully this helps you. I hope it helps. Like I said, there's a lot of videos, great referencing sources out there that'll help you get to, understand this more. Debriefs, people got debriefs on YouTube. I watched a couple people's commercial Checkride debriefs on YouTube. So definitely look up, just type in commercial Checkride debrief or whatever. That way you can kind of have an idea of what DPs are potentially going to do to you for your Checkride, oral, and see what other people go through, and I think that helped me a lot prepare for my Checkride. So yeah, just look up, use your internet, use your resources as much as you can, and take advantage of that. We're in a different age than it was 5 years ago, it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, so definitely take advantage of everything that's going on or what sources we have. That way we can get this stuff done, because we don't want to, the last thing you want to do is get disapproved and have to come back another day and pay another full fee for a lot of money for another Checkride just to do a couple maneuvers or just to retake an oral. It doesn't feel very good. I've been through that before, and just trying to make sure we all stay on point. Okay. Thanks for watching, y'all. I really appreciate it. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, like the video if you liked it. Comment below if you have any questions as far as like what I went through or anything specifically, and subscribe to my channel. Got a couple videos that's gonna be coming out soon. I'm actually working on my next for me is my CFI. I'm working on my written right now. Shout out to Shepherd Air. Use Shepherd Air as well for my written. Working on my FOI. So and during all that, I'm actually getting access to building up some hours in the Cirrus, so I can get start taking advantage of people who have Cirrus if they need pilots and stuff. So That's what's going on with me. CFI up next. And if anybody got any tips for me on that, just let me know, man. You know, expand your horizons, no limits. A lot of stuff's on the way this year, y'all. I'm about to start a podcast. My clothing apparel, feel me, it's about to drop with hats and stuff. So we're about to get stuff going. And a nonprofit, I want to get a nonprofit going too to get these kids involved, man. So it's a lot of big things that's in my head that I want to get done, and I'm going to make happen because manifestation is real. Prayer is real and everything. So stay at it, stay consistent, stay proficient. Thanks for watching, y'all. Y'all have a good one, all right?